Lupa bawa ni headphone.
Alright, so Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi everybody, rakan-rakan pensyarah daripada Universiti Malaysia Kelantan. So nama saya Muhammad daripada Universiti Malaysia Kelantan kan, daripada Fakulti Inovasi Asas Tani. Saya akan jadi moderator tuan-puan pada hari ini. Dan hari ini kita akan bersama dengan tetamu khas kita iaitu Profesor Madya, Dr. Nurfadhlina Muhammad Sharef daripada Universiti Pusat Malaysia untuk membincangkan mengenai Chatgpt dalam pengajian tinggi. So saya tak nampak lagi ni Dr. Fadhlina ni, mungkin boleh munculkan.
Oh ya. Okey, terima kasih. Saya baru perasan tadi rupanya saya tak connect lagi dengan phone. Anyway, should I use any background image? Memang itu ya.
Ini yang diberikan tadi kepada saya. Kalau doktor ada mungkin boleh tukar, kalau tak ada pun tak apalah kot.
Okey, ada. Boleh.
Okay, so sementara tu saya bagi introduction sikit lah. So untuk hari ni kita just santai-santai aja lah, lagipun doktor pun call saya hari tu pun cakap format hari ni pun nak lebih pada santai-santai saja. Kita borak-borak bual santai bersama dengan para pensyarah untuk share the experience and the application on ChatGPT mengenai apakah itu ChatGPT, kenapakah ChatGPT ni dah jadi begitu massive items not only in education lah, tapi juga in the world basically. Ada juga dikatakan sebagai ChatGPT ni adalah the new iPhone moment ataupun the new internet moment of the world ya. Dia akan merevolusikan fasa baru dalam fasa internet di dunia. So webinar kita pada hari ini adalah dianjurkan oleh Pusat Kecemerlangan dan Pembangunan Akademik Pejabat, Timbalan dan Canselor, Akademik Antarabangsa daripada Universiti Malaysia Kelantan.
Sebab kawan sekarang dah memang lepas berbuka je kat orang lembik.
Sorry, minta audience mutekan mikrofon masing-masing.
Alamak.
Alright, thank you. Okay, so objektif kita hari ini macam saya cakap tadilah, kita akan bagi sedikit introduction mengenai apakah itu ChatGPT, sebab saya rasa kita ramai daripada kalangan pensyarah kita bukanlah ada background daripada IT ataupun komputer atau apatah lagi daripada dalam machine learning ataupun artificial intelligence ya. Jadi pada hari ini kita akan membincangkan mengenai apakah itu ChatGPT. Dan kita akan sentuh sedikit mengenai practical application mengenai ChatGPT, especially untuk academician seperti kita. Dan Dr. Fadhlina juga akan memberikan sedikit tips dan juga strategi macam mana kita boleh incorporatekan ChatGPT ni di dalam sesi PMP kita. Kemudian kita juga akan bincangkan mengenai potential benefits of GPT. Sebagai contoh, macam mana kita boleh gunakan ChatGPT ni untuk automate kita punya grading, automatekan kita punya feedback kepada pelajar-pelajar kita untuk tugasan ataupun assignments. Macam mana pelajar kita dan kita sendiri sebenarnya boleh gunakan ChatGPT itu untuk personalized learning and tutoring, dan juga boleh digunakan sebagai untuk language translation dan juga untuk interpretation certain part ataupun paragraph yang mana kita tak faham, ataupun sebagai contoh kita, daripada bukan background kita, it's very hard for us to understand, kita boleh gunakan ChatGPT untuk merungkaikan
saya
merungkaikan maksud paragraf tersebut. Itulah yang banyak aplikasi daripada ChatGPT ni. Dan sebenarnya ChatGPT juga boleh digunakan untuk dalam bidang kajian dan juga sebagai untuk data analisis juga boleh sangat-sangat membantu. Okay. Kita juga ada sedikit concern mengenai ChatGPT. Saya rasa semua orang, bukan saja di UMK tapi saja seluruh Malaysia dan seluruh dunia secara amnya, ada sedikit concern mengenai ChatGPT, especially dalam konteks academician, macam mana kita akan adapt kepada teaching and learning kita. Sebagai contoh, macam mana ChatGPT ni tidak akan disalahgunakan untuk bypass teaching and learning process, dan macam mana apa yang kita boleh gunakan untuk membantu pelajar kita gunakan ChatGPT so that dia boleh gunakan ChatGPT untuk membantu diorang belajar dengan lebih bagus dan lebih berkesan lagi, dan macam mana kita boleh gunakan untuk merancang kita punya strategi pengajaran, pembelajaran untuk supaya lebih berkesan lagi. So sebagai makluman tuan-puan yang hadir pada hari ini, beberapa buah negara sebagai contoh di Hong Kong telah mengharamkan sebenarnya ChatGPT di beberapa institusi pendidikan diorang kerana dikatakan berbahaya ataupun tidak boleh, tak sesuai digunakan ataupun dikatakan menipu dalam teaching and learning. Jadi tapi di beberapa negara lain mengatakan bahawa itu adalah tidak patut, sebab ini adalah teknologi yang kita rasa perlu untuk pelajar kita tahu, dan sebenarnya kita perlu melatih pelajar kita untuk berfikir lebih kritis dan lebih kreatif menggunakan teknologi. Okey. So saya rasa cukuplah saya memberi setakat ni. Saya nak kenalkan juga kita punya panel kita, iaitu Profesor Madya, Dr. Nurfadhlina Sharef daripada Center for Academic Development, Universiti Putra Malaysia. Beliau merupakan adalah Timbalan Pengarah untuk Innovation in Teaching and Learning sejak daripada Julai 2018 di UPM. Profesor Madya, Dr. Nurfadhlina telah mendapatkan dia punya PhD daripada Bristol University of Bristol in United Kingdom dalam bidang Intelligence System, dan ada banyak pengalaman dalam akademik dan juga industrial. Sebagai contoh, beliau pernah sekarang bekerja dengan sebagai consultation dengan LHDN untuk data analytics sebagai bantuan tunai rakyat. Ada juga dengan Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia untuk membangunkan sistem merit terbaru bagi enrolment ke public university. Okey. Semua maklumat ni pun saya dapatkan daripada ChatGPT ya, Doktor.
Seriously? So dangerous. I should ask about myself.
So saya just gunakan ChatGPT untuk dapatkan your bio, and then saya combine dengan Bing. So saya dapatkan, so I cross check dengan you punya LinkedIn juga, so that to make sure that the data is somehow accurate lah. Okay, so saya rasa sekali lagi saya jemput sekiranya tuan-puan audience kita pada hari ini ada sebarang persoalan, keraguan ataupun any interesting remark that you would like to share with us. Feel free untuk put your comments ataupun dekat ruangan chat, ataupun you can just unmute yourself and then you can just start asking question or chip in. Sebab again kali ini kita dah setuju dengan Dr. Nurfadhlina untuk memastikan sesi kita ni saya santai sajalah, so it's going to be beneficial to everybody. Okay, so saya rasa saya serahkan mikrofon kepada Doktor untuk mulakan dulu.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everybody. It is I'm very humbled to be invited into this session. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I would like to also welcome everybody to join us, but I would like to suggest that we stay in a default mute if possible, for us to make sure that the session is smooth. I would like to propose everybody to stay in a mute setting for default. And from time to time, I would welcome for us to have a chat. We will have several sessions involving open mic session. So let's use that session to have a better conversation more comfortably. Thank you very much also to Dr. Mahmud for the surprising information. Somehow I also immediately asked ChatGPT about myself. Fortunately, there is nothing, hopefully nothing for now that is shameful and stuff like that. So guys, this also indicates the importance of validating information. I appreciate that you mentioned you use several sources, and most importantly, to validate with the owner or the person itself. This is indeed one of the important skills, and this is why ChatGPT is disrupting us. And there is a new role for us to keep on eyeing what could be the possible threats to us, although we think that we might be just no one, but indeed the information is available, and robots like ChatGPT can take it and try to manipulate it. I think Dr. Mahmud, for ensuring the smoothness of our session, can I also suggest the Secretariat to, from time to time, check in the participants list, and if there are unintentional unmute, let us mute it so everybody can focus to the session. I would like to share my screen for now. Right. So this is where I asked about myself and got a bit got calm with what has been put up. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take you to the title of our, I would like to suggest that this is a session where we can have a discourse about how ChatGPT is impacting our teaching and learning processes. Today, I'll be focusing on several practical tips and strategies, and hopefully we can also discuss on further improvements. I'm from Department of Computer Science. Besides my work in the at CADe, the center has recently updated its scope, which covers leadership excellence as well. You can see some of my other affiliations on the left. Coincidentally, my research areas is in AI, so I try to relate to teaching and learning innovation from time to time as well. Today, I'll be covering 5 aspects. Let us first look at ChatGPT. I think we need to also consider there might be people who are new in ChatGPT and haven't used it even for once. So we will also take time to look at it and have a brief session to test it out. After that, we look at some practical tips and strategies for redesigning activities. Next, to how we can redesign our assessment considering ChatGPT. After that, a proposal on how to have a safe and responsible AI, continued by the conclusion. Okay. Right. So as for the introduction, even the World Economic Forum have said that generative AI is a game changer that society and industry need to be ready of. The generative AI can come in many forms of application. ChatGPT is only one of it. But do you realize that we have actually used generative AI before? Maybe again, you would say that none of the tools besides Bard or even ChatGPT that is listed in my slides are common to you. But the purpose of this slide is to share with you the allure of AI-powered tools that have now able to make people in academic industry, name it, either the students or also the lecturers, even the administrators, are taking advantage of these AI-powered tools to be able to enrich the information discovery experience. It is so powerful such that it can help, and this is where it, in a way, it tries to replace or try to increase our productivity by summarizing and explaining content. It is able to answer questions that we give to it. And you would notice that the way that it is answering the questions is very human-like, although we can argue some parts is a bit robotic, but overall we can see that it is like a small child or even a person who's trying to adapt into the culture of that language, trying to respond to us. And one of the most powerful advantage of generative AI is its ability to write, to compose, edit, and this is at the level of nearly experts. Because of this, besides its threat, or we can also see opportunities for us to tap on it to increase our productivity. Many people are now afraid that it might actually eventually replace humans. So to pull back all this background into the context, ChatGPT is indeed a disruption to education. So we shouldn't turn a blind eye to it. So what we need to do as an educator is to be able to redesign our activities and assessments so that the teaching and learning process will still maintain its quality, or maybe I should rephrase it to say that we need to increase our productivity and quality of teaching and learning by tapping into this technology. Have we learned our lesson before? In 2020, suddenly COVID-19 has encrusted all the world, and we have to shift emergencyly to online learning. And in 2022, generative AI has now come up, and what could be next on the horizon. So what are the important lessons from this phenomena? In UPM, we have conducted several sharings regarding ChatGPT, and I have also seen that many universities have started to do awareness sessions like this. And congratulations to UMK for taking this step. In a few months ago, I was interviewed by TV3 regarding generative AI tools and how it can impact education as well as workmanship in Malaysia. And in UPM, we also have conducted workshop. Yesterday, the MQA has released this advisory notes on the usage of AI, generative AI in teaching and learning at higher education. Let us look together at what this is about. In this advisory note, there are several sections. This advisory note has acknowledged that this generative AI application is something that is disrupting the IPT, and it is indeed a potential application to be able to be used to support the teaching and learning processes. And as the principle, it has been agreed that the generative AI in teaching and learning is playing its role to increase competitiveness of our students, creativity of our students, and their ability to innovate. So how to create this for the students? We as an educator play an important role. Among of the special or how this ChatGPT becomes so disruptive. You just imagine our students, just try to be practical. In our class, there are many kinds of students. Some students are really shy. Some students are good, but they they don't have the confidence enough to approach and ask questions to their lecturers. There are these kinds of students. So having this extra modality in teaching and learning, they can connect to that application comfortably, and it's quite reliable, allows the student to have a personalized learning experience. It can interact with this tutor, digital tutor without worrying to receive any human perception. So this biasness or this normal skepticism can happen when they are among their peers and among their educators. Because of this is one of the important reasons why having ChatGPT is useful, so that the students can have their buddy tutor which is available 24/7. Besides that, as much as we worry that the students will be able to use the ChatGPT to copy paste the answers from ChatGPT, so this is where our role becomes very important. It is very crucial for us to redesign our activity and assessment so the students know by using the ChatGPT or any generative AI, it is actually to curate the answers in any activity or assessment that they are assigned to. So this becomes an adaptation and knowledge management process, information management process, as well as optimizing the source of information and knowledge that the student is analyzing. So we can imagine that we can still stay in a learning environment that is interactive, immersive, and yet authentic. This is also for us to prepare the students with the technological skills that consider their requirements, especially in the future. Imagine we are producing students who are competing among each other. Would you, as a potential employer, appoint a student or a potential candidate for your company who has advantage over somebody who doesn't have advantage? And this advantage comes from resourcefulness. So us as educator, how do we do it? Further, in this advisory note, there is a suggestion to the academic staff. It said that the technology should be looked as a facilitator only and added value only for the teaching and learning process. So this statement is very important to tell that the role of the academic staff maintains to become the instructor, the guider for the student, the coach, and the mentor, to make sure that the teaching and learning process becomes effective and the students know how to learn with integrity. As much as we want to prepare the students with a personalized learning environment, the educator should play a role model, and hopefully this will start with the educator's knowledge and competency on using ChatGPT itself. We need to know what this technology is about so that we know how we can tap on it to make ourselves better and to make our students better. So please feel free to download it. I will also upload the advisory note afterwards. I happen to be one of the subject matter expert to produce that advisory note. Let us now look at ChatGPT. Now, the ChatGPT 4 is available. This is from my one of my past slides actually. In general, the free version that we are using now is based on GPT-3, and it is a natural language processing model that able to answer the questions that humans put in and responding like a human. So why this is disruptive? Just imagine, in 1 million user has been reached in 5 days, and in just 40 days, ChatGPT has achieved 10 million users. If we compare this streak of achievement compared to other, I would bet that many of the applications listed here are familiar to you. like Netflix, the Netflix that's so popular to us, especially because of COVID-19, the Airbnb, the one that we usually refer to when we want to go for holiday. You're so familiar with Facebook, I assume, Spotify and Instagram, what more? So ChatGPT has managed to steal maybe some of the, or maybe place itself in this industry to grab in just 40 days, 10 million users. So imagine this was released in November 2022. So what more of it now? Ladies and gentlemen, AI is actually not new to us. We are addicted to use the, some of us are very addicted to use the filter applications in our phone. And if you play around with TikTok, there are so many face filter apps, even the Snapchat apps. And this is generative AI as well. So how do we have to bother with GPT-4 or ChatGPT now? Last night, when I was preparing for this talk today, I found this. Previously, GPT, there was a huge discussion about whether GPT-3 will replace any human's job. And this is indeed one of the most important concerns that people have whether ChatGPT would replace any jobs. On the left side, you can see the top 20 positions that GPT-4 itself claims that it could be able to replace in the future. So if you are in an industry which you would produce students to be able to fill this kind of job in the future, this is a very alarming and important time for us to make a shift. How we can change and how we can redefine the roles of these people. So we need to give an added value so that the technology wouldn't be able to replace 100% this potential position. At the same time, AI will also shift and make IR 4.0 accelerate. It will generate opportunities for people and create new job profiles like automation engineer, robotics, machine learning expert, deep learning trainer. This is where we can tap into this knowledge to tell the younger generations. Maybe you have nieces or nephews or even your own kids who are now still trying to plan what to apply when they go to higher education, or even kids at school. Because we can only imagine now, and we are actually going seamlessly without we are realizing it or not, to live in a world where AI lives together with us. Because at the same time, we know that AI brings positive factors. It reduces human errors. It makes the task completion faster. This is where we as educators can tap on it. Our moderator just now mentioned that ChatGPT can help in automating some of our jobs. To me, this word automating some of the jobs have, for now, some of its limitation. It can help us to curate our responses that may be better compared from we use our brain, because maybe we are not the expert in language. Then we have a more refined version of language being generated to us in form of text. We can take it and then we can pass it as a response to our students or in other stakeholders. But this word automation, from the perspective of, at least for me as a computer scientist, what we imagine is end-to-end automation. So this means that in this supply chain, in end-to-end, there could still be human. And if we refer to UNESCO's guide on AI for governance and AI for the citizen, AI shouldn't be replacing human functions, but it should be able to improve its productivity. So considering this, if we look back at the positions that GPT-4 claims that you will be able to replace in the future, it is going back to us as human to be able to identify what could be the improvements in this kind of jobs, so that these people may still be relevant, but maybe some of their roles are being redefined. Because imagine, do we want educator or teacher or even instructor to be listed in this? So this is where we need to make ourselves relevant. The applications of AI in education can be categorized into these three scopes. The first one is AI for education management and delivery. Before the version of ChatGPT, before the version of ChatGPT chatbot, previously we have seen many kinds of chatbot. In Malaysia, we have the chatbot in AirAsia, TIMB, Plastol. Those are for management and delivery. Similarly, for AI in education, these chatbots can also be used for enrollment and retention so that it can connect to humans. But the usage is not amplified because of cost and many other reasons. Besides, for education management and delivery, AI has been used to empower teachers and enhance teaching. So this is where having the ChatGPT as virtual assistant, we need to consider ChatGPT as our virtual assistants for that ChatGPT to help our students. But again, remember, it is still up to us to redesign the activity and assessment. The third category of the application of AI in education is in learning and assessment. We have used Turnitin before. Turnitin is an AI. It used some techniques, rules-based techniques and scoring techniques, ranking techniques to be able to detect plagiarism. And there are also machine learning-based plagiarism detection. Besides, adaptive tests for differentiated assessments are also available. But for now, many of the works that are available are on research. There are some products that are available, but again, not upscale. And AI can be used to automate grading and grade prediction. Let us now spend some time to join the storm, because ChatGPT has taken the world like a storm. Let us go to this. If you're new or if you have used it before, I hope you can take this opportunity to spend time on it. Guys, let's use ChatGPT together. Go to, okay. May I please be welcome to open your mic to respond if you are having any difficulties. I have it available, so I'll just go to chat.openai.com/chat and then you can enter it. If you have used it before, on the left side, you can see the history. And recently I have used, and you can see that I've not even used the plus version. I don't see much need for it, although many people have stated that they have benefited from it. So the point is that please feel free to use, guys. We need to know about this technology. So any problem, anyone have problem accessing? If it's your first time, it will ask you to create an account. Please feel free to use the Gmail account. That's the easiest. If you want to know some suggestions of extensions, so I have used the, let me see, print friendly and PDF. Print friendly and PDF extension. So why I use this? This is because from time to time, sometimes I want to share, for example, okay, a few days ago, I was preparing something. So this is an example. This is quite scary though. We can just ask it to prepare something, some write-up for us and give context to it. So I asked it with this kind of prompt. I told about my background and that I want to see whether it is able to steer it stereotype me out. So to my surprise, not much different actually. So what this means is that ChatGPT was trained on this and generalized also on some of the possible happenings. Even this is about a real humans and this is about me. And if you're looking at this, stating as the eldest in my family, I was before looking after my younger siblings and all. So hopefully this is to trigger you to test what are the possible things that ChatGPT can generate for yourself. Besides that, we can also, previously, I used this for my class. This semester, I'm teaching algorithm design and analysis. And one of the students asked me about Tower of Hanoi. And this is one of the normal problems that is in this course. And I have noted that as I went around in my class, my students was using this same instruction. So I wanted to see how the students are interacting and what the ChatGPT respond to him. So I use this exact instruction. So here you can see, yes, ChatGPT is able to generate coding from this. So by looking at this, if you recall my slides earlier about the possible shift of people going to be machine learning engineer, deep learning engineer. So this is where it is possible that ChatGPT would be able to facilitate the shift towards transdisciplinary in research and also in teaching. So if we look at this, this is exactly the possible answer for my students to copy paste and send to me. And I don't want to be the normal or I don't want to have that experience to be able to sit down and having to actually mark ChatGPT's answer instead of my students answering it using his brain. So you see, this is why we need to be able to test the questions that we want to give to our students. Would the ChatGPT would be able to, what would be the possible answers the GPT would respond to our students? Do we really want the students to just copy paste and send this to us? Definitely no, because we have, why do we have to spend time to mark what GPT has been able to do? So that is why, as an educator, what we need to do is this, to observe its response, to keep on interacting with it. Okay, so let me probe you further. Ask GPT to create a lesson plan for a topic. Just try to be on sometimes, this is also sharing about myself. When I want to have a lesson, I have this lesson plan in my head. In the morning or even at night before I want to sleep, preparing for the next course, next lesson. We have some ideas what we want to do, but sometimes we don't have the time to write it out. And most importantly, we don't know whether it is something effective. So we can use GPT to help us to create that lesson plan so that we can follow that. We can follow the generated lesson plan. And then now what we need to be able to change is to be able to motivate the students for them to self-learn, for them to be able to do the activities such that they will unleash what their pure understanding is. So we need to have this ability to make the question harder. How to make the question harder? We can use ChatGPT to suggest that to us. But depending on what it is suggesting, copy that back and put that back in the ChatGPT and see what are the possible answers. From this, now we can consider, oh, ChatGPT can actually help us to make our questions. Now imagine this is a new threat coming. If you're familiar with micro-credentials or online courses, many of the online courses right now have MCQ questions, and even some of our assessment have MCQ questions. And if we're conducting online tests, imagine the students can easily just copy the question, including the answer options, put it into the Chatgpt. The Chatgpt will answer on behalf. So what is the strategy to address this? I will take you through how to prepare it. Is Chatgpt magic? So for us to understand it better, we need to know these at least 3 abbreviations. G stands for generative. It is able to generate new text based on the input they receive. It is pre-trained on huge amounts of data, including also some of our writing. You have seen that it is able to answer about myself, generate responses about myself, and how it becomes so intelligent. Its brain is based on a technique called transformer, where this transformer neural network has its own architecture that is able to generate and try to manage information that is important from time to time. Let's look at this. Chatgpt can be used in teaching and learning. On the left side, you can see, now, it can answer questions, it can create lesson plans. It can also do text classification. What this means, if you put in some text, you can ask it to classify according to some categories. So this will be useful on people who are working in language areas. Many people use it to get fresh and creative ideas, or even to refine a personal thought. You can get advice. You can also use it to create rubrics, to translate sentences, to compose a write-up, as I have shown earlier, to summarize some text, to complete your text, to generate text in a particular style. So this particular style would be able to defeat those who are trying to detect whether it's GPT or not. And I'll show in my slide later on that detection of GPT is actually not really conclusive, because I've used 4 different applications, 3 different applications, and these 3 different applications give me different answers. On the whiteboard here in my slide, you can see that we still have these elements of teaching. As an educator, these are still our job. Can the Chatgpt manage our classroom? Are you sure? It cannot, because it doesn't have a body. It is not connecting with people. It's not connecting with all the students that is together in a space, whether it's online space or physical space. It cannot do relationship building. And it cannot do differentiated instruction. What does this mean? When we are teaching, from one group to another, from one batch to another, we give different instruction according to the student's needs, right? Chatgpt does not do that. So to know and to be able to leverage and make ourselves better educator, we need to merge the things on the points, 10 points on the left, with all the elements of teaching that we need to do on the right. Chatgpt even understands dialect, guys. Try to catch a clatter with it. Then you can see how far it can answer you. So you can try that. And okay, now coming through towards how we can use AI in education, how we can use Chatgpt in education. According to the teaching theory, there are 3 paradigms where AI can be used in teaching. First is AI directed, second is AI supported, and third is AI empowered. It can become, and you can see that Chatgpt can fill in any of these paradigms. But to me, I would like to suggest that AI empowered should be something that we need to offer our benefits, because AI supported means that when the students want to do their work, they can explore suitable answers and they can use ChatGPT. AI directed means that the learner becomes the recipient. They use GPT for learning. So AI empowered is very important for us to know how to tap it. If you look at the literature, many people have published this out. There are more than 20 ways now. I put up 10 earlier for you. In this slide, you can see 20 ways to use ChatGPT in the classroom. It can also be to debate with it, to ask advice to it, add it to think, pair, share thinking routine. So number 7 will be one of the activities that I'm going to share today. It is also able to anticipate the response that you'd expect from AI. So we need to do this kind of activities to anticipate the response you'd expect from AI and conduct activity to discuss what could be the improvements from what the AI is generating for us. So we can create even better personalized learning experience compared to GPT. Again, this is another 14 how ChatGPT can be teaching time savers. It can be to automate and also suggest to us questions for our quizzes. It can help us to outline a slideshow or even video. So if you are building micro-credentials courses, you can use it to generate storyline for your video. It can also create chapter summaries for kids that can create for kids or for students that need it, and it can become a text compactor. So because it can generate the summary. So I believe these slides will need to be shared later so you can go through the content. I want to speed up to examples. In this slide, I show the 5 ways that ChatGPT can be used in English class. You can generate creative writing prompts for story ideas. You can create sentences with specific grammar structures. And then let your students to analyze and correct it if they can. And most importantly, ask them to debate what could be the improvements. And you can ask the student to generate the answer on themselves first, copy it, put it in the GPT, and assign GPT to suggest for improvements. So in a way, this is how we can leverage GPT and empower on GPT. This is my part 2, tips and strategies for redesigning activities. Before I proceed, let us do an open mic. Is that possible, Dr. Muhammad?
Yes, boleh, please.
Okay. So I would like to invite those who are around to share some of your experience before. Maybe we can start with you, Dr. Muhammad. How have you used ChatGPT before besides searching for my name?
Okay, I started using ChatGPT, I think around last year, end of last year, because in Twitter everybody was so is buzzing about ChatGPT since Microsoft invested $1 billion into OpenAI. So I said, oh, this is very interesting, I would like to try. So I straight away go to OpenAI and register, and then so I try first, as you mentioned just now, we try about how to prepare the outline for teaching. Okay, so for example, I tried. There was one new course that I had to teach last semester, so I never teach that course before. So I just would like to know that what the best outline or the structure, the lecture content would be for the undergraduate students for that particular topics. Because sometimes we lecturers or educators have this so-called as the curse of knowledge, right? Because we think that the way we think, because we already know that thing, so we believe that everybody also know that thing. So we tend to oversimplify our lecture notes, right? So by using the ChatGPT, to tailor my presentation or the lecture notes to meet the requirement for undergraduate first year students, right? So I compare the outline that I prepared for myself, by myself, and then I compare with what ChatGPT had prepared, and then there are some similarities, but there are also some improvement that can be, improved on the slides. And then other things that I also use is to improve, for example, to give comments on writing. So I just copy and paste my own writing and then into the ChatGPT, and then ask ChatGPT to comment and then give mark for my writing. So please rate my writing and then please suggest for improvements. So yeah, so if we ask the GPT to say that, okay, give from 1 to 5 star, rate the quality of my writing and how can I improve my writing. So we can have like live feedback, as you mentioned, 24/7, so we don't need to ask for our friends to check for the writing for us.
It doesn't get angry, right? It doesn't get annoyed.
No, you can ask so many questions so many times. For example, like, I don't understand, can you please explain it in simpler term? And then, okay, no problem, this is a simpler term. And then I still don't understand, can you please make it simpler than that? And then they try to make it simpler and simpler until you understand. I think it's similar to Wikipedia. The thing is that Wikipedia, you really have to go through the pages and then they were sorted by topics and the contents. But ChatGPT is like more to conversation, like you talk, you ask questions, they answer you, and then if you don't understand, you can keep converse with the system. It's very interesting.
Exactly. So its ability to summarize the write-up is the most valuable, I would say. Let us invite one person to share their experience, how they use ChatGPT in their teaching. Shall we? Anyone?
Yeah, I believe many of us have experience, as I can see from the chat. So anybody can unmute yourself and share with us. Feel free, so that we can learn together.
Anyone ready? What way is it now in UMK? Yes, please.
Any volunteers?
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, the first volunteer. Good morning.
I'm not from UMK anyway, I'm from UITM.
All right.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, Dr. Fadhlina. Yeah, I have no, I don't have probably extensive experience with ChatGPT, using it in my teaching and learning. But then again, I'm just worried and concerned about the use of this ChatGPT, especially for final year project. And I just want to have some probably some idea, or probably from the advisory note from QA that you just shared just now. Where do we see this thing forward? I mean, how extensive ChatGPT can be used by students? I totally understand that as a tutor or lecturer, we have to be controlling these things, but probably can go beyond us. So I just want to know your perspective on this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. I, in fact, have an experience where my students use ChatGPT. I can see that the students, I think it's fair for me to firstly highlight the background of the students. Last semester, I had these two wonderful students. Wonderful, eh? They are already good in the sense that their writing skills is good. Their AI skill is good, machine learning skill is good. The project was on data mining, so that is good too. But these students, in fact, she was one of the person that triggered me. We have to do something for UPM, indeed, because then I realized that she asked me, Doctor, have you used ChatGPT or not? Oh, I've used it before. Why? Nowadays many of my friends use it in our course. Oh, really? How did you use it? Oh, Doctor, they are all now just copy pasting and blah 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 blah, because this student knows that I'm at the center. So I said, oh, okay. Then I just told my center, we need to do something about this. We need to alert all the instructors. So that was why UPM becomes the first the first university that do something on ChatGPT, because of that student. And that student was doing FYP, and at that time she was still just developing her data mining model. So what I discovered is this: the write-up becomes better, but not necessarily what is being written reflect what is the tangible output that the student is preparing. So we need to be able to differentiate that the tangible output, which is the synthesis or the product from the brain, from the report. I'm quite active with Academic of Sciences Malaysia. So Dato' Asma, I think she's quite popular. You must have known her, Prof. Emerita Dato' Asma. She said this. She heard that at other countries and also journal editors right now have said that the world will transform such that the publication, this will also relate to our Q1, Q2, the craze of writing up all these journals will now change because of this ChatGPT. Because you know why? The report, the hardship to write, the quality of the report, it's difficult for us to differentiate if we only rely on the report, on the ability of the researcher or the person that we are evaluating. What is my sentence? It is very difficult for us to identify the quality of the output if we only rely purely on the report. So this means if you are in the committee of FYP, what you need to consider is to adjust the percentage for reporting. Or if you want to maintain the percentage of reporting, what you need to do is to give marks on gradual, not just the final report. You know, sometimes when we do this FYP, we only give marks for their final report, right? So this is where we need to have a graded process for their drafting activities, for them to be able to tell us, to explain why they write such and such, how to relate what they have written with what they have done. I consider people from arts area or social science area, maybe their FYP has higher weightage on the writing compared to other tangible products. Like in my area, we have to come out with software or maybe some analysis. But I imagine people in science social as well, there are some of these discourse or thoughts that the students have to express themselves, which will not allow them to only use GPT to replace them. So the worry now is that the GPT will replace the students from learning. We don't want to be able to produce students who graduate but actually doesn't acquire the knowledge that we want them to acquire. And it will be even unfortunate if these students accidentally got 4 flat or even 3-pointer above. So this is where all the assessment structure needs to be readjusted. The activity that we conduct in class may be assessed. So we need to focus more on the students' ability to express verbally, to tell what's in their mind, to look at how they work collaboratively, so we can stay human. The students need to stay human. So this is where we need to teach them how to learn. And because of that, we need to know also and understand how they are learning now. I know this might be difficult, especially if we have big classes and even if we are teaching many classes. So my suggestions is to design this together with your students. This is what I did for my class. I asked my students in the first day, may I know, have you heard about ChatGPT? This was one of the burning questions I want to ask them in my first meeting with them. They said, yes. How did you use it? I have to tell you that in my class, I really welcome you to bring your laptop. Because why? I want to observe them using it. And I tell them that, do you agree? I ask them, do you agree this ChatGPT is now changing the way you learn? Do you agree that it is my job to be able to design what activity and assessment I need to give to you so that you wouldn't be able to be so complacent and easy for you to copy paste? They all laughed. But then after we have done this for several weeks, they understand their role to learn with GPT and to design the activity and assessment such that they can still learn. And that is actually in my second part. I'm not sure whether we should invite another sharing or we have a break in about 5 minutes for us to continue to the next one. Dr. Mohammed?
I don't know. If you would like to take a break for 5 minutes, it's also okay.
Usually I don't, but you know, what I had after that is that people tell me you should have taken a break. People
Okay.
are actually tired. So let's
Hi.
take a break. Oh, yes. Okay, so let's have a break. But if you are okay, you can stay around and we will do this interaction session. Okay, let's go. Yes, please feel free. Come on.
Okay, can I have a hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
you.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. I'm
Morning.
all right. Just something that I kind of find very interesting about this ChatGPT. All right. In fact, I've heard about it quite some time, and it's good to have you here today to share with us your knowledge in this. And I find that, in fact, this ChatGPT is actually has a very huge advantage, okay, for students to generate more information. And it's a huge advantage for students who are good in the language. If they know how to utilize their language skills in using the right words to seek for information, and they can get information very fast, speedily, I would say. So this is a very huge advantage for students who are good in the language. The disadvantage I see is that it really hampers creativity, because students will be using a lot of the information from ChatGPT, because every single thing that you ask, it will just pop up in the chat. All right. So I think we have to teach students, my personal opinion is, you have to teach students to justify the information that they have gotten from ChatGPT. In terms of accuracy of information, do not believe everything. They need to check. They need to justify the information that they have gained and not to believe everything given. So here, I think we'll have to remind students the importance of integrity in our product, okay? Like when you write something, make sure that you check the accuracy, make sure you understand, make sure that you can justify it. And this part of integrity in learning is very important. Another important point that I see is that it is very difficult to catch plagiarism, all right? Because students can also get it checked and rephrase. And therefore, I see that turning in becomes quite irrelevant. So I do agree with you that we need to redesign the way we test students. And if we do not do that, it may be a very difficult way it's going to be very difficult for us to evaluate them. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Wow, I love it. Thank you very much, for sharing that. The first part, you mentioned about the importance of this skill, prompting, prompting. Do you guys still remember? Some of you might be young. I can see Arthur, he's so young. So maybe to him, Google comes together as a package when he's at school. But I still remember during my time, I think it was about entering higher education time. So that was the time that I know about Google. Okay, then because I went to the faculty of FTSM, Faculty of Technology and Information Science, one of the things that was taught to us is information management, how to search. Now I see that being changed to how to prompt, how to prompt, how to question. So what is this skill? What skill are we talking about? This is critical thinking. Do you see? To be able to creatively formulate questions, depending on our context, how to search, how to prompt, how to get answer, how to reformulate, how to combine with other places. I would like to also respond. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Azmoa. I was about to say that we need to redefine plagiarism and cheating. At the same time, as much as we talk that ChatGPT is a tool that can give us advantage as well as Google, this was a disruption. Google was a big disruption to the library. Don't you agree? Because of having the Google, we are so lazy of going to the library. We do. How many of us now go to the library to find books? But the library is our tool. Even if you teach research methodology, you should still put library as one of the tools. It was in chapter 2 when I was teaching research method. Then the next tool is Google. I think next time we have to put ChatGPT is our next the third tool besides SPSS and all. But the point is that GPT or any generative AI is emerging to become our tool. Whether it's plagiarism or cheating, or is it actually we are in the process of curating? So do you see why this term curating, paraphrasing is now trying to gel, blending into one? But the bottom line, these are all the skills that everybody need to acquire. And if you read on digital competency released by UNESCO, they have also identified that these are the skills that are important for us to acquire these days. Allow me to continue with the second part of my talk. Here I will share with you my experience and let us together formulate how to do PBL, project-oriented, problem-based learning. I'm going to share with you how I did PBL through experiential learning. Well, these are all maybe to use some terms, but they are important also. I would like to propose, maybe we have done something similar before, but we didn't know that this exists. Please search or please chat to learn about the GAGME 9 events. Please use GAGME 9 events in teaching. Okay, so I put it in the chat. Please search on it. Please find information on it. When we are in a lesson, instructional lesson, the first thing that we need to do is gaining attention. So what this means, I would say that as an educator or instructor, the most important thing that we need to avoid is trying to do this. Imagine, we go enter the room, say good morning, hello, whatever, and then we put up the slide and try to finish the slide. This is one of the worst case scenario of teaching. So let us try to balance this with how to become engaging educator. So GAGME events help us to transform toward this. We need to know when we are doing something, we need to gain the attention of the learner. Then we need to inform them why they are learning. So this is where we can have a slide telling about learning outcome. Then we need to stimulate them, recall of prior knowledge. This can be of so many things. We can ask one student, each of them, this is usually what I do in my class. Each student have to tell minimum one thing what you remember from the past class. Can be exactly the previous week, can be anything that you remember at all. This is also actually to wake them up. You just imagine some of them actually had to work from I don't know where, or they are still trapped in the previous bubble of the previous class, or actually was engrossing in using their phone or whatever. We have to wake them up. So having this item number 3, stimulating recall of prior knowledge, will make their brain to connect and prepare. This is lesson today. Why we have to do this? Because previously we have done this. So number 3 is very important. Number 4 is where we do share our slides, or maybe just play some videos, or put up some infographics or some image and try to present the information we want to do in the topic. So if you see, my point is that many of us only do number 4 for the whole time of the lesson. That is bad, okay? So please ensure it is actually only one of the 9. Then, while we are teaching, we need to provide guidance to them. That means we have to interact with our students. That means we have to elicit their performance when they are thinking and responding to us. We have to be able to detect, oh, the student still doesn't acquire, haven't been able to master what they need to be able to do. So we need to provide feedback to them, and this could be repeating back what you have explained earlier. It could be giving another better example so they understand better. And number 8 and number 9 can be through assessment. You assess their performance and you enhance the retention and transfer through the assessment and sharing further. Let us look at this. This is again the 9 events by Get Me. But I like this one because it tells the instructional designer perspective and the learner perspective. So next time you know, when you're with your student, as much as you try to gain attentions of the students, good students, they are actually also trying to focus their attention on the learning task. Allow me to stand up. I'm tired sitting. Okay. And then the instructional designer perspective, they want to inform the students of the objective, but again, the students also want to know why they are there and what they learn. And they want to actually be given a context of why they have to learn and how to relate. And instead of you just present the content, what you need to do is to be able to tell them why you need to know this part, and from what you know, how you're going to translate it with something that is practical on the reality of the world. And you need to also show them how to do it using examples. And you need to also let them try and tell them how they are doing and hold them accountable for their learning and help them to turn their learning into world results, into real world results. So some guides to embrace Chatgpt and activities. Number 1, I would suggest, allow your students to use Chatgpt and discuss together with them. What are the rules of its usage? Maybe some of you would really want them to state when they use the Chatgpt and for what, and maybe for why, up to you. And but again, what is most important is to be able to practice retrieval and other memorization activities that specify certain time, topic, or activities. This means that the student needs to alert. You are the kind of lecturer that wants the student to be always present, both spiritually and also physically, and most importantly, mentally. So you need to be able to create more collaborative and discussion activities, because when they discuss, they have to work, their memory have to work for it. Well, they can use the ChatGPT to look up for quick answers. But when they are together with their friends, because they have to talk to other person, they need to stay in context. So always do collaborative and discussion activities if possible. You need to also emphasize on experiential learning and ask them to elaborate their own perspective. Ask them to demonstrate what they have learned. Ask them to bring in ideas, evidence, perspectives. So this way, the students have to be able to be resourceful. They are going to be very alert in the topic, and ask them to use ChatGPT to answer questions, to experiment to find more questions that cannot be answered in that topic. Imagine if your students do this, wouldn't they be able to really understand that topic? So again, it is our job to design this. All right, so these are my suggestions. Practical steps. These are also actually my previous suggestions. So you need to do, you can consider to do this. Number one, identify your lesson objective. Then you conduct that activity that have the task requiring the students to use ChatGPT. Inform them that they have to present their findings. And then you observe their interactions. This is where you need to go around and look at the prompts that they use. Some of them are really creative, you know. And this is where you can see whether they have the ability to compose questions or not. Because at the moment that they know how to compose questions, this is a skill. And then imagine them using their brain to find answers. That is why I ask my students to bring the laptop to the class. And then analyze your instructions and check whether they are too straightforward. Your question, your instructions. Are they too straightforward? Are they very easy? Are they only copy pastable into the ChatGPT? And the answer is easily also copy pastable. Copyable, pastable. Copyable, pastable? I don't know whether such word exists. But the point is that your questions should have a good quality such that it is able to encourage students to build higher order thinking. And you may need to refine the instructions. I did that after I went around and I realized, oh, no way. You now can just take the questions directly and put it up in the ChatGPT, and I have to read back, but you actually don't understand. Let me refine my instructions. I did that. So consider to do this. You need to monitor also how they are completing the tasks and analyze the quality of answers and their understanding. All right. ChatGPT said differently. When I asked it, what is the practical steps to use ChatGPT in a lesson? These are its answer, but you can see they are actually similar, defined with my previous suggestions. First, define learning objective, then choose platform. In my case, the students are face-to-face. Sometimes I also do blended learning substitute, where we have online class, and well, just use any platform. You can also do this when you are face-to-face, yeah. In my case, I like to use Google Slides. Then, if your students haven't heard about ChatGPT, or maybe they pretend that they didn't know, or maybe they haven't known yet, but later on they'll know from others. So you can introduce about it to your students, and then post the questions together, make a demonstration, and then ask the students to try to find answers based on your instructions. And then together you can evaluate the responses and discuss it with the students, and use the ChatGPT for individual and group work, and then provide feedback. These are the suggestions by ChatGPT. So let's look at some of my experience. For your information, in UPM, this is our week 4. We have started 4 weeks ago. So in week 2, what I did was this. Well, I have prepared my slides. In the first lesson, we have done some activities. For example, this sorting algorithm that is in the first chapter. So you can see in slide number 3 here, I gave them this BDAC, ask them how to sort this to ABCD. So there are several approaches actually, but the point is to let them to start talking because it's just the first lesson. We want to ice break. Then after that, I tell them, do you realize that as using brain is really easy, but if I ask you to do and to draw on the paper and try to consider alternative, you find that there are alternative solutions to this problem. So from this, now you know actually we can derive some steps and we can derive an algorithm from this. And that is why in the class, I ask them what are the algorithms that they know, and then they come up with some algorithms. So the objective for week 2 is for the students to be able to compare the sorting algorithms and explain the time complexity. So the activity that I did was memory recall. The students came in and I asked them, what do you remember from the last lesson? They had to answer. Some of them couldn't answer, but it is just to warm up. And then I asked them to find answers in pairs for them to sort and then give presentation. So then, because in 1 week we have 2 classes, that was the first class. And in the second class, I did this. I asked them and divide them into pairs. So you can see the pairs of name here. And then I assign them algo, 2 algo per group. And I give this instruction. Choose 2 sorting algo, provide explanation on them. Find the algo, test the coding. Find answer why the gamma, theta, and big O are as such, discuss with your pair. So when I put this up, this is in Google Slide, I put this up and I edit, I allow the students to edit the slide and they can put in the answer. To me, previously, before ChatGPT, this is already very challenging. And it is usually going to make students to go and find the algo and then study the coding, discuss, and try to explain the steps. But see what happened. I realized, okay, let me share. I realized this. Oh, I need to show this first. So this is my observation when I give that. I realized the students managed to complete the task. They are free to express the answer in structure that they are convenient with because I allow them to edit the slide and put in whatever. Students happy. They are happy because they can use ChatGPT to obtain some answers. But some of them also said that they mix with other references. They look into the slides and website. But some said that the questions are tough. Okay. And then this is the first time in the presentation, they are shy. Although actually they have learned, it's not the first time that everybody is in the same group comes into the class together, but they tried. Let me show you the slide. Okay, so this is activity for week 1 and week 2. So you can see this in the slides. So at a glance of eye, you would say that, well, so if you look at all of this, these are not what I have written. These are what the students have written based on what I assigned to them. And then I invite them to come to the front for them to explain what they have done for each of these activities. Then I realized this. Why is this the same? Sorry. Okay, but then I realized, how can we ensure that they have a deep understanding despite I saw that they put a lot of things inside and they still try to present. But I noticed when I ask them a question where the answer is actually available in the slide, I just twist a bit. They couldn't answer. But then I say, oh, so this is when I realized, actually, I need to change. So see why, Then I realized, when I put the first question, choose 2 sorting algo, provide explanation on them. Oh, this is very easy, you know. They just copy and put in the Chatgpt something like, explain to me about merge algo and how it sorts this sequence. And then the students just copy paste and put in the slides. Oh my God. And then I realized also, okay, it's good that I do collaborative learning, but then I realized because I assign one group to do 2 algo because I thought it's going to be already too challenging for them, the student confine their discovery only on the assigned task and they don't actually learn from each other. Okay, so I had to scaffold with summary activities with reflections. I know I need to do this now. Then I analyze my instructions, find the algo and test the coding. I realized in the Chatgpt can already give coding, although students can find from other websites, but they only look at the coding. They don't analyze the coding. So I asked them to prepare 2 examples of sequences, identify the performance. Again, they only copy pasted. Oh, I got a headache. I asked them to find answer why the gamma, theta, and big O are as such. They also actually doesn't understand this. They got the answer, but could not relate the time complexity with the looping structure. Because you know why? Again, before this, when I gave the similar question to my students, before this was lab question. This semester, the subject that I teach does not have lab. So I wanted to test how actually students this semester, if I ask the same questions, how would they learn? I asked the similar question. I see that they tried to explain, but their understanding very shallow and they can't even give their observations because again, they took advantage too much on the Chatgpt. So this is my intervention. For me to ensure that they have a deep understanding, I usually take markers with many colors. I pass to them. One person take one marker, go to the front and draw a concept map. What you understand so far up until this chapter. They go to the front, they put up, but not very comprehensive. But then I realized the students actually show me a blank face. They still have low understanding. So it is my job to explain better this time. Maybe also because it's only week 2. They don't understand much. But my worry is more towards them going to be trapped in this vacuum space because of Chatgpt. So what I did was, I asked them to together flick through whatever you understand now. We built this concept map together. So we had this concept map on the whiteboard. So you can see some of the markers here also. I have orange, blue, whatever color there. And then, so in week 3, I did some intervention. This is round 2. This time, I make it more structured and more guided. So you'll be surprised. You would say, why I make it more structured and more guided? Previously, to us, that is spoon feed. Do you see now why this is disrupting our activity and our assessment? Because by having Chatgpt, the students forgot how to learn. And it is going back to us to tell them, you should be at the front of learning, not only use the Chatgpt. So you see, actually, the questions are similar. But this time, I gave 2 same sequences, 2 same examples that they need to solve in each by using the algo that they have been assigned. And again, I asked them to discuss and write the answer in the slide. Be prepared to share your observation. So you see, this is still the same. So what I did this time, I prepared another slide and I adjusted the page size. This time, the page size is, we can change the page setup 100 times 50.63. So this is because so that they will have huge space for them to write in. So what I did was I prepared this one. I tell them, I want you to compare like this. Session, selection, bubble, merge, these are all the algo names. You can change this with your specific topic. So I tell them now, I ask you to compare, but previously you did not compare. So you put it together here and then answer this sequence. So 87312, they have to solve it. If using insertion, what will be the steps this algo will sort it? How about selection? How about bubble? How about merge? How about the other 4 algorithms? Then, if you're given a new sequence, how would it be? So the students did it. The next time when we meet, we did another activity. I asked them first, okay, thank you very much, class, for you to fill in the template that I've given you. The first activity that we will do is for you to identify the criteria of each of the algorithm. So the students started by highlighting all these criteria. By now, they actually understand better because this is a repeat activity. But what is different this time, because I use specific examples, then the student understand better. And because of this example, that is the students now can compare by each of these technique, what will be the difference. And most importantly, I ask them to fill in their observations. Look at this. These are their own words. Point is, by using ChatGPT, we have to always ask them to write their reflection and write their observation. And based on what they have written, because of this size is not really friendly when we put up on the screen, because I still have projected in the class, I extracted and put it like this. So now the students said they understand better. They like this activity. Now they understand. Actually, by using ChatGPT, well, again, they can copy paste, but actually doesn't ensure them to understand. After that, I push them further. Okay, I say, good that you say that. Just now you have extracted the criteria, right? Now, tell me again, what are the criteria? So, we built together this criteria on the first column. The students identify themselves. The criteria is based on a number of iteration, by number of divide, number of swap. And we did this because we discussed at the whole class level. Before this, they did it in pairs. They had to present, but the whole class did not discuss together. So my point is that because we have ChatGPT now, the way that we need to change, we need to observe them. We need to help them design a template like this and then ask them to fill it in. From this, when I ask them any questions, they can answer because they understand. And I tested them further. Now I give you new sequence. You go to the front and tell me and derive how to solve it. You know, I almost cried when I heard my student say, Doctor, now I understand. When we are coming up with the algo, actually, we can design our own algo. It doesn't matter when we want to sort, we start from the first element or the last element. But the point is that in each algo, there should be initialization and we have to have operators to swap and all. The students really internalize. And this is where I know that the students have able to learn this. So I put this up on the slide, tell them. So now, do you realize what we have learned? I also learned together with you, students. Now, do you realize that you understand the characteristics of these algorithms? You also learn your way of studying. You learn how to develop a goal. you learn that each of them have different steps and you identify the basic criteria. So you have some homework still. Why? The time complexity is different. My point is that, coming back to my slides, my point is that, my observation. So this is the practical tips. What we need to do. We need to observe their learning behavior. We need to understand their learning pattern. We can provide template. It is our job to help them. Students are clearer on my expectations. So that means I learn also how would the students translate what I want them to achieve based on this learning outcome. Now that I understand the students better, I can identify who needs help. After they have completed the answer, they identify the characteristics. So now I know and they understand what is the boundary of the copy pasting. Now they know they need to put pure effort to learn. And now I am sure collaborative and experiential learning has enabled everyone in the class to be able to identify deep understanding. And this is actually beyond existing literature, you know, because none of existing materials available have done what we have done together in the class. Isn't this pure and authentic learning? So I know every time I need to listen to their reflection, I need to motivate them further. I remember myself when the students able to answer, I said yes 5 times because I was too happy. So this is when we need to stay human. Don't let the robot to replace it. So important notes, we need to emphasize our role as learning coaches. Students need to be taught how to learn in this Chatgpt. Instead of us considering and assuming they have learned, maybe they actually copy pasted. So we as lecturer need to also unlearn and relearn, because maybe Chatgpt can come up with better instructions compared to us. So what is our role? We should become better mentor, guide them, monitor them. And we need to also be ready for agile teaching strategies. When we need to scaffold, what we need to redesign, we have to focus on higher order thinking. The question earlier that I used was problem-based learning and the Socratic mindset. The way for the students to keep on inquiry-based to teach them how to be responsible learners. We need to be a role model to them. So some practical tips. You may see that I extracted this from the UPM's Guide for Teaching and Learning. So you know that we need to let students to use Chatgpt, ensure that the students understand, engage with the student, and conduct collaborative activities. If we look at some terms, you can consider also doing this jigsaw activity where, for example, you assign different groups, especially if you have large classes, you assign different groups to do different things. I did that also, if you noticed previously. And you need to create a space where the students can join things together again, because this is a jigsaw, remember? And we can also conduct this World Cafe where the students can be active in the class, moving from one place to another, trying to discuss several topics while they learn. So make this active learning. Allow them to use Chatgpt. Other methods that we can use: do storytelling, do nonlinear presentation. Nonlinear presentation means ask them to suggest and come up with anything. Suggest anything, discuss anything, discuss anything. We can also use tools like the Mentimeter or Kahoot or quizzes to do polls and surveys like quizzes. And you can have games in class, or at least short it to the traditional discussions and group breakout session to let students to learn from each other, to share insight and have opportunity to ask questions. So those are similar to here. So I'll skip this one. And now we are ready for redesigning assessments. Due to time, allow me to proceed. Yeah. Okay. So now that we have looked at the activities, how ChatGPT can be useful to redesign activity. This is actually more to remind us. It's actually the technology who can be empowered to become facilitator for learning. But the educators leading this teaching and learning process, we need to play a crucial role to redesign the engaging learning experience and to have a synergetic collaboration between multiple entities. This means the learner, the educator / instructor, the information and the technology. And this is essential to ensure the learner's augmented intelligence. Maybe you will argue, what about cheating, honesty, truthfulness? How about the data recency? Is there fake information? How about the privacy of data? How about misleading potentials and manipulation potentials? Somebody shared just now about redefining plagiarism. Indeed, it's time to rethink about plagiarism and cheating. This slide tells about the bot created to student created. Which of these can you consider cheating? If you look at this, student plugged prompt into the AI, copied the response and submit it to the teacher. This is bot created. Is this cheating? The AI created a response. Student read, edit, adjust and submit. Or could be the student created multiple AI responses, use the best parts, edit and submit. Or could be the student wrote the main ideas, the AI generated a draft and offered feedback to improve. Or can be the student consulted the internet or AI for ideas, wrote and submitted. Remember, previously, before we had the ChatGPT, the students still consulted the internet and various amount of information. How would we know at that time the students didn't actually just copy pasted or use another paraphrasing tool like Quillbot or Grammarly or paraphrasing online to refine? Those are actually tools only. How about when the student wrote all assignment contents without consulting AI or the internet? This, of course, purely student created. But what if we have students who can write all the assignment content with his or himself's effort and leverage on this technology to refine the writing and make the writing better, while in the process also learning to produce something better? So how do we facilitate and make this happen? If you're familiar with Wolfram Alpha, where the Wolfram Alpha is one of the most famous apps that is used in teaching and learning. This Wolfram Alpha is very intelligent, and this was 6 years ago, and it is able to complete the calculus homework. Is this considered cheating? So my point is that people have discussed about this academic integrity issue for so long. So the response that can be emerged from this could be whether to ban it, whether to go business as usual, or whether to embrace it. So we must pick an immediate, can be cost level or micro picture, and future needs response could be the macro picture. But remember, these students need the technology for their future. This is from a slide I borrowed this slide from my peer speaker from UKM when I gave a talk to UKM previously. So Cik Wan Muhammad Imran highlighted that we need to balance the risk for cheating versus opportunities for feedback. How do we develop meaningful and relevant assessments? aren't these more important than investing in student surveillance? How can we reward our students for their effort or outcome? Are we indirectly incentivizing cheating? So the point is that we should not deprive our students from learning the values and skills. They need to be able to be an individual who understand what integrity means. We need to be able to allow them to make mistakes and receive feedback iteratively, and set up a productive struggle. So this productive struggle, as explained in my previous example, hopefully can inspire you. Look at this. People may be concerned, can ChatGPT substitute educators? How about when the student submit the draft to the ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT generates some response to it, and the students utilize that feedback, and after that, at the same time, when the student after the student submit the work to the instructor this time use ChatGPT to get feedback and to score based on the rubric. So this is where we would see that ChatGPT is immersed in teaching and learning. So what do we need to do? Some practical tips. We need to come out with unique case study. So for example, you can implement passion-based learning. Ask the students to write on something specific area that he or she likes and elaborate, and can use AI to their advantage. You can also use AI to generate or tailor a special case study. And always ask the students to give their opinions and justification. Ask them to give feedback on how whatever that is being generated can be improved. If it fits, how to organize it, how to communicate it effectively. And it's also important for us to consider different type of assessment. With personal opinion, with reasoning and justification, with current issues, maybe we can emphasize more on live demonstration and as oral evaluation, or maybe doing interview to them. So some guide, review your assessment, avoid straightforward questions or simple facts. We need to ask current, complex, open, real-world problem based on contextual topic or issues. You can also incorporate ChatGPT to personalize or draft a unique case study. Ask the students to critique for improvements, whatever that's being generated, and to discuss with their friends what their friends got differently. Because ChatGPT sometimes will generate differently based on the variations of prompts. It can also generate something different even with the same prompt. So we can try to use different assessment types which are more immune. So it is our job to make it immune to AI, and ask the students to come up with figurative related, some oral assessment and live demonstration. And we can use ChatGPT to draft quiz questions and possible answers. And you can ask it to generate graph rubric that you can then refine. But I would suggest if you take action number 5, make sure that this process is in a setting where the students doesn't use technology. In this slide, I wish to show that how ChatGPT can actually give wrong answer because some of its logic in its coding is not correct. If you see on the left, both answers are actually correct and ChatGPT got it correct. But on the right, I see that ChatGPT got wrong answer. I don't know why, but the point is that this means that I can use this kind of question asked to my students, because if the student really understand, the student knows that for B, actually it's wrong. So if they only copy paste this to ChatGPT, then that means they would get it wrong. So the students need to understand deeply about the concept. ChatGPT also can be tricked Maybe you have seen this somewhere before. When you, because sometimes it takes this process as the learning process. So when you emphasize saying that 2 plus 5 is 8, it will agree to you. This one I took from one of the sharing on Chatgpt organized by UMT by Dr. Shamsul, and where in his slides he mentions that we can use advanced question design techniques, create questions that are more relevant and engaging for students, and explain how Chatgpt can be used to generate questions based on these advanced techniques. Many people might be also interested on how to detect Chatgpt. I have listed 4 applications here, but based on my observations, when I put up this write-up that is generated by Chatgpt, there is no conclusive answer. Although, well, you can say 2 out of 3 says it is by Chatgpt, but I would argue that it's really important for us to polish around whether it is written by Chatgpt or not, because I would suggest that we need to look at the core content rather than worrying about the writing style, unless you're from language department, and it's very important for you to look at the language. So guys, how to make sure we have safe and responsible AI? These are the questions that we need to consider. How can AI be leveraged to enhance education? How to best exploit it for common good in education? How to ensure ethical, inclusive, and equitable use? How to prepare humans to live and work with AI? So it's partly our job. So besides telling the lecturers to do something, we need to suggest to our students. The facts by Chatgpt cannot be taken as is, and students need to question every piece of text that they got from AI, because there is possibility of inaccurate information, as I showed earlier in the example of questions on supervised learning. And because we need to assume there'll be more and more AI tools being developed. And even in the MQA advisory note also have said that the students need to be informed about the importance of generative AI to support teaching and learning, but not replacing their tasks as a learner. Therefore, it's important for AI to be used responsibly, and the information that is generated must be evaluated to know that it is correct. More suggestions to students. Is AI needed or not for this task? Can we check its security? You must check its security. You must make it honest which part do you take from Chatgpt, and you need to give credit where it is due. And you can read further here. I will put it in the chat afterwards. And this is from Dr. Muhammad Imran, to tell that grades may not reflect student mastery because Chatgpt can short circuit the student effort now. So what we need to redesign is this productive struggle. So how would the students do productive struggle? That means the quality of the question, the instruction that we give to them will allow them to struggle productively, not easily to copy paste from the Chatgpt. And GPT-4 is now available, and it tells that for every of its creativity, visual input, and longer context ability, now it is improved. So imagine, it will only get better. The UNESCO has informed that the world's citizen needs to understand what the impact of AI might be, what it can and cannot do, when it is useful, when it must be questioned, how it can be steered for the public good. And to be able to do this, therefore, everybody needs to have some competency with AI through language, through knowledge, understanding, skills, and value orientation. And this is called AI literacy, which covers the data literacy and the algorithm literacy, so we understand how the AI algorithms find the patterns. So one way to do this is for an educator to use and check with the Chatgpt from time to time. The UNESCO has also released the AI and education guidance for policymakers. But if you go through all these 8, it is actually to emphasize the values of human-based AI, to highlight that AI should be human-controlled, should be in ethical, should be in an ethical, non-discriminatory, equitable, transparent, and auditable manner, and should have values that prioritize people, should foster broad corporate and civic responsibility when you're releasing AI technology, and to ensure, number 8 is very important, that people remain at the core of education as an implicit part of the technology design, and to protect against automating tasks without identifying and compensating for the values of current practices. Even Malaysia has also released its roadmap regarding the principles for responsible AI, covering fairness, reliability, safety and control, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, and pursuit of human benefit and happiness. So to conclude, some takeaway message. Let us not ban Chatgpt, please, because this is like shutting down the students from the need to prepare themselves for this future skill. The emerging competencies would be resourcefulness, how to leverage tools, how to prompt, how to find information, how to reference information, how to manage information responsibly. Our role is more important now. We need to ensure the students are prepared for their unforeseen future. Because for educators, when you touch a life, you touch the life forever. So the students need to be resilient. So please consider to use GACMI's 9 events of instructions. Make sure that from gaining attention towards enhancing retention and transfer, we can consider to use technology to a good advantage. And we need to be able to be agile and redesign from time to time. I summarize lastly with 3 positive effects from Chatgpt disruption and the university's role to produce quality students. First, now it is more important than ever. It's very pertinent that we focus to produce students who are able to communicate clearly, coherently, and confidently, and not just to let them to hide behind the lengthy reports, which we cannot even ensure that they are the person who have written it, and let them to truly think how to condense and articulate what they have written in that report in a dialogue that can evolve their thoughts. Please create this activity in your class. Second advice, emphasize on the experiential learning. Switch to live problems that can be evolved and stop feeding students problems from the past. Let learning happen in real time. Provide the students with hands-on experiential learning opportunities, and assessments should be increasingly based on creation, like producing practical artifacts. And the third one, you might consider assessing the quality of the process besides only the output. So allow the students to work together, because you need to also ensure that they don't merely form groups and split the work. They need to be able to interact with each other. Are they able to collaborate effectively? Are they ready for professionalism? So as we shift to a more dialogue-based approach to learning, isn't this what the university should be about? To produce thinkers, scholars, So our students will be of high quality rather than simply the outcome. I end with this quote: if we teach today's students as we taught them yesterday, we rob them of tomorrow. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Nurfadhlina, for the very informative, insightful, inspiring sharing just now about ChatGPT, and also thank you so much for sharing with us your real experience in classroom, how you integrate ChatGPT in teaching and learning process. So what I can say is that I believe transparency between the lecturers and students is very important, because I also totally agree with you. By banning ChatGPT is a futile effort, I believe, because by being transparent with the student, we encourage honesty with the student. So we can say that we can tell the student that they can use ChatGPT, however, we are going to guide them. So we are basically the teaching process are going to be more guided. And then I believe the role of lecturers nowadays has becoming more towards facilitators. I heard this years ago that, you know, lecturers not supposed to teach, but the role is actually to facilitate the teaching and learning process. So with this development in generative artificial intelligence, the role of being a facilitator in classroom is becoming very, very important. And by incorporating artificial intelligence such as ChatGPT, and then I also read some comments here, Mid-Journey, you know, to generate image, we'll be able to ensure the students have the ability to research, to polish their critical thinking, to manage their information skill, and also most importantly, how to collaborate with each other. So I don't know, we actually have 1 minute before we end the session. The secretary has shared the attendance list on the chat section. So please fill in the attendance list, and then please also rate the program that we have today, how it benefits you. I hope it is benefit as it benefits me. So, and then from the email, we're going to share with you all the materials, the recording, and also the slides from Dr. Nurfadhlina. And I don't know if maybe we can have one question last before we end the session, because I believe maybe there are some burning questions before we end. Anybody would like to? Yes, please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Can I ask? I think it's not like a question, just to add a little bit. Maybe we can share each other's. Thank you for Doctor for fruitful informations that we believe that we cannot run away of this new technology. But the thing is that because I'm from the social science lecturers, and I look, this thing is different in terms of how you are going to assess student in futures. But when we look into today's, what we understand that information is not exclusive. Everybody can gain knowledge, and ChatGPT is proof that is even more. Actually, we are doing the same thing and looking a lot of information than what we need. But the ChatGPT, it could be a summarize of the information that this is what you need to look into. So I think it's a more advanced that the way we learn actually is quite different at this time of time. At this time. But from my point of view, I think is if we look back to what we already assessed to them previously, is in social science, we are more concerned about their final exam. Maybe we can increase percentage of final exam to be tested, so that they can learn, they can be assessed accordingly in terms of their understanding of those things. Because social science is quite different with the technical students or science students. They will need to have technical skills or experimental skill in order for them to prove their competence enough of their study. But the social science is more towards of gain understanding. That's why if you look into the social science student and management students, more and more what they are testing is they look into you know, like professional qualifications. 100% is based on exam, because this is how they want them to gain understandings. Because I look, the thing is that because I was I'm studying a professional as well as academic qualification, so I know the gap because the professional is being demanded by, is a proven that you have that skill and competency at that level by using the certain professional qualification. So maybe moving forward, that's why in my teaching, in my assessment, I will concentrate much on my tests, final tests, midterm tests, and those things. So there is a very less in terms of people gain marks for the assignment or this thing. But the way is that I will, even the assignment also, I will look into that, how they can present assignments and the output and all those things. So this is might be a way of assessment need to be done. And I don't think the ChatGPT is, if we are follow like what doctors say and all those things, I think it's not threat for us that we can make friend with the ChatGPT in futures. Okay, thank you. Maybe, thank you, doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ridwan. Can I respond to you? I can share that what happened in UPM, and also based on my interactions with other friends from other universities, our immediate response is to focus towards the traditional exam, meaning cutting off from this technology, asking the students to go to final exam. But remember, whether the final exam is really suitable for the domain depends only on the subject matter expert can be sure about this. But what I want to emphasize is that at least during the learning process, before the formative assessment takes place, make sure that the students have been exposed and give them opportunity to learn as much as they can. Because while they're at the university, it is the time for them to grow. When they go out, then they'll compete. So at least allow them to prepare themselves with the skills to be resourceful. So hopefully this can be considered. In terms of the assessment, besides only written exam, again, we can consider also verbal exam, having, so because when the students go to work, not all of them will be assigned tasks that require them to write. The most crucial is how they can communicate and collaborate with each other. So consider this as well. So the students will build better human skill, better soft skill, which nowadays the university are being complained of not preparing this enough for the students, as much as we have extracurricular activities and all. But at the university, mostly we only look at the cognitive percentage. So hopefully we can consider this as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Doctor,
Doctor.
for the response. Okay, so before we end, I would like to ask for your guys' favor, if you can turn on your camera. I would like to see the beautiful and handsome faces so that we can have take a picture with you, group photos with everybody before we end the session. So I would like to ask the secretariat to take the picture. Okay, secretariat, if you are ready.
Okay, we count to 3. 1, 2, 3. First page. Next, second page.
Dr. Najmi, Dr. Anis.
Third page. Fourth page.
We have 4 pages in total, so yeah, quite sometimes. Okey dah ke Sekretariat?
Okay, dah selesai.
Okay, alright. So once again, don't forget to fill in the attendance so that we can email you the slides. And again, thank you so much to our panel, Associate Professor Dr. Fadhlina, and to the all the attendees, and also to PKPA from UMK for organizing this event. Again, thank you so much everybody. Selamat berpuasa. Assalamualaikum. Have a very good day.
Salam. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.